up to this day, I still have difficulty asking people for their membership fees because it's just
it's your passion.
It's in my passion. I can't really put a value on it, but at the same time,
it's not a good business practice.
It's not a good practice.
You have rent and you have an employee.
It's a really bad business
yeah.
practice, actually.
Yeah.
But you know what? On the flip side of it, this pandemic, I've had so many phone calls from parents saying, we're not coming, but keep charging us. No, I'm not charging you. This is still a business. We're not a charity. So I appreciate your offer. It really means a lot to me.
That's a family connection.
It is a family connection.
Thanks for coming back today so that we can talk about and share the current sort of phase of going from athlete to chasing and following your passion and doing it with love and building not just a club but a successful business at the same time in doing that, and not just doing that in any other circumstance, but also through times like this, and sustaining it and staying the course with it. Not only are you successful, clearly, but you are also helping so many people to be successful. So thanks for coming and sharing that.
Thank you so much.
We had a conversation about, that now the martial art is the birth of that, and the excitement along that roller coaster. And after having done all of that, then you now get invited. How did you meet Master Gibbs?
So I knew, actually Master Gibbs and I, we tested for our first degree black belt together.
Okay.
So we knew of each other, but
Which
we didn't
year was
really
this?
know. This was, I think, 1995.
Okay, 95.
1995.
So you were training somewhere in the city?
In the city.
Okay.
We were training in St. Clair and Bathurst area.
Right.
But then Master Choung had another location in Oakville, which was a lot bigger.
Okay.
And so Dr. Gibbs, Master Gibbs used to train at Variety Village, which is another one of the franchise locations, and I was training at the headquarters
of Master Choung.
Of Master Choung's, and then once a year he would have a black belt testing, and then all the students from different locations would come together and test.
Okay.
So.
And where was that location? Was that St. Clair?
In Oakville.
Oh, that was Oakville.
In Oakville, because we had a bigger space to do all the 30,
Got
40
it.
students over there.
Okay, so that's where you first meet.
That's where we first met, and then when I was competing, he actually asked me to come in one day and kind of like
Master Choung or Master Gibbs?
Master Gibbs asked me to come into his school. He had opened up a school in 2001, and around 2005, 2006, he asked me to come in and just be a guest instructor one night.
Was that the school called? What was it called?
It was called Authentic Taekwondo.
So Master Gibbs at that time started something called Authentic Taekwondo. And where was that located?
This was in Markham on Woodbine and 14th area.
Okay, so where it's located today?
Yeah.
So it's always been there. That's where he started it.
Yeah.
So he was training under Master Choung, same as you. You guys meet at your first test together, and so he went off, and then he started his own school.
He went off on his
Now he's a doctor. He's a dentist.
Oh, the other master, yeah.
Yeah, the founder of Authentic Taekwondo is a guy by the name of Dr. Gibbs. He's a dentist. Professionally, that's what he does. Till today, he's got his practice.
He's got his dual life.
He's got this I feel like it's one complete one when I see him and the way they do it. But again, so these two components, big components, and so he started it in which year?
2001.
Okay, so he starts it in 2001.
It's a sweater.
Yes, that's it. That's exactly the sweater.
Yeah.
That's right. Oh, there it is. Established 2001. I see it all the time, and I never read it.
You don't notice it anymore.
I just look at the courtesy, integrity stuff on this side.
I love the values.
Those are their the tenets, right? So 2001, and then he invites you in 2005 to come as a guest instructor.
As a guest instructor, so he had developed some black belts that were going to be competing at the provincials.
Okay.
And he just wanted to kind of fine tune them before he sends them off into the provincials. So he said, "Can you come and work with them?" And so I said, "Great." So I came in and I did a couple of sessions with them right before, and then after provincials, I was supposed to come in kind of have a conclusion of how things went. But I guess obviously when you're doing anything for the first time, when these guys went to the black belt tournament, their performance wasn't, what they had expected. So I think they were a little bit disheartened. So we did 2 sessions before, and then we were supposed to do 1 session after, but they didn't show up. They were kind of like disheartened. So to be honest with you, I said, you know what? I didn't want to do this for short term. I wanted to do this for the long term. And so, he was giving me some money for it for the private sessions. And I said, because they didn't show up, I can't accept your money. So
we'll get to that in a sec, though. But I still don't understand something. How does he go from meeting you just once at a black belt test to inviting you to be a guest instructor? He had all these options. Why did he choose you?
So he used to go to tournaments a lot.
Okay.
So he was always a supporter of our club and some of the athletes and stuff like that.
Okay.
So he used to come to these local tournaments and provincials and kind of like cheer for the students that were competing.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, he was always very encouraging, and his words really meant a lot to me. Like, hey Akmal, I saw you competing there. You look really good out there. Way to go! And so, to hear those words was really nice.
So he saw you there as well.
He saw me there, and he
Okay.
saw me competing, and he thought, you know what? I think this guy can probably bring some value to my
Okay.
students.
All right. So that's where the invitation also then leads, from. So that's interesting. So you first are called in to help a group of black belts prepare for a tournament, an adventure, and it might not have just been a local one. It might have been.
It was provincials.
Okay, so it was
Yeah.
provincials.
So
you
provincials
coach.
getting ready for
This is
nationals.
your first
Oh,
experience,
wow.
would you say, coaching, or were you were you instructing
I
beforehand?
was still coaching and helping at my own school,
At Master Choung.
at Master Choung School, where
Okay.
I was one of the, leader black belts.
Right.
So I would kind of lead classes, and then some of the kids that were kind of coming up, I would help develop them, so take them to local tournaments and coach them. So I had an idea how to interact and what to look for in terms of like your own strengths, and then when we do go to a tournament and you're fighting against somebody, to be able to pinpoint somebody else's weaknesses and to kind of put those two together and to.
Did you
come
take
up with a
courses
good
on
plan.
coaching?
I was just thinking that because I'm not familiar with
Yeah.
Taekwondo, but I know in
Right.
soccer, like when you're coaching, there's different coaching levels that you can aspire to, and you have to take courses and stuff.
Yeah.
So does that exist in Taekwondo?
It
or-
does. So I didn't do it when I was competing, but then when I became an official coach in 2009, when I had my own school, there's something called the NCCP, the National Coaching Certification Program, that we all have to do if we want to coach. So if you want to go local, national, international,
Different levels
there's
of
different levels of
coaching.
Yeah.
coaching, and you have to take those courses.
Okay, so it's the same kind of system.
But at that
then,
time,
yeah.
you hadn't taken any.
I hadn't taken.
So where
any.
were you learning to coach?
So I was learning to coach from my own coaches. So my coach was like telling me how I was doing, and just watching him interact with other of my teammates and myself, I was kind of getting an idea of how to do it, and also to lead classes.
Yeah.
You kind of see what the majority is, and you kind of create a plan based on that. So you're always like subconsciously analyzing what to teach for the next group of people
Based
that
on
are
what
gonna
you
be there.
observed
Based-
during, yeah.
exactly.
So there were 2 people significant who you've mentioned in the past, Master Choung and your Master
Tino Dossantos.
Tino Dossantos. So those are the 2 that you're kind of looking to and picking the parts that you understand and like, and then sort of formulating your own way of doing it. So no coaching certification yet at that point in time, but an invitation to come and work with developing or preparing a group of black belts for provincials. Okay, so that's where we're at. And then I'm just trying to
I know,
understand.
there's a lot.
Okay, and then you get there, and then you take them on this provincial, turn to this tournament, and they didn't fare so well.
You know what?
What
It's
is
hard
that?
because
Yeah.
I only had really just 2 sessions with them. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to, throw blame on
No,
anybody.
but
No.
I just had 2
You didn't do
sessions.
your job.
I know,
Yeah.
It's
clearly.
like-
But we went to this tournament, and they really got, they got surprised because
Yeah.
they were really well rounded. They're flexible, they're fast, they got great height, and then somebody else shorter, less,
Yes, yes.
But
It's
experience
devastating.
was
Yeah.
really like just kind of like shut them down, and they didn't really have an answer for it. But my perspective on that is that it's okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's where you
That's
learn the
where
most.
you learn the most, when you have no idea what the heck is going
Yeah,
on.
watch that tape.
Watch that tape and watch yourself and see if you can make one step improvement next time.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, that's where they stop, because
Yeah.
that devastation of like, oh my gosh, I just got owned. Like I have no answer at all.
And they walked in thinking
they
that they
walked-
were the favorites.
Yeah.
Like they were bigger.
They're bigger, stronger, faster, more flexible. Like they can kick around my face, no problem.
And they got beat by
they
what
got
they
beat
thought
by
was-
somebody who was up to their
Yeah.
shoulder height. Like, you know, looking down on somebody, and they're coming at you
Yeah.
strong and kind of like just moving around.
they
in
scored
a way
the points.
They scored the points, and it is disheartening. But those are the moments where
But
you
that's
really
a
That
character
doesn't just
building
happen.
moment,
Yeah.
though.
That
That's
doesn't
such
just
a
happen in
pivotal
Taekwondo.
moment.
Yeah, it's not just Taekwondo.
No, I've
it's
seen
not
it in
just
every
martial arts. It's
sport,
like
yeah.
life. You think you got this, you're prepared, you were ready, confident, all the things that check off, and we go in there and we get blown away.
Yeah,
It
by
is-
someone, and it's always such a humbling lesson when you have underestimated your opponent. Right, I feel like that's such a character building moment.
Very
is,
true.
Is you
100%.
always need to respect your opponent, regardless of where they are on their ranking, right? Because that's your opponent, right? They're training just as hard as you are too,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, and you have no idea who they are.
Right.
You're just looking at them and you're judging them based on looks alone.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think they got really like disheartened. Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I thought that he was shorter, maybe slower, not as
Yeah.
experienced, and I could beat this guy. And then all of a sudden, complete opposite.
Yeah.
Like he had no chance against him whatsoever.
yeah,
So one little misstep of misjudging, right, and overestimation or underestimation, whatever we want to call it, despite the skill, leads to like this decline in morale, which now the skill set hasn't changed. The abilities are still there, but when the morale drops below a certain level, now it's like quit. So then what happens?
So
They're
obviously
looking
not
at you
really-
now.
So-
What's Master Gibbs thinking about all this?
So I think Master Gibbs knew, like, you know, these are the guys that are the best at his club, and he wants to go and try them out. So, you know, can you come and give them a little bit of a pep talk to kind of help fine tune some of the details that they need for this event? Great, no problem.
Sure.
But I'm not a miracle worker.
Or how can you do it? Right, like
I had
exactly.
2 sessions.
sessions, and I so here's what you can do, here's what you expect,
Right.
and let's go
Okay.
and try it.
Right.
So we went and we, you know, based on their abilities, we tried what we could, but obviously they were
Yeah.
overestimated themselves.
Sure. There are all
and-
these habits that have been formed still, right?
Yeah. So then we went there, we lost. Okay.
Yeah.
The problem for me is like, okay, this is a journey.
Yeah.
You know, you're starting from point A and you're going to point Z. So there's all these little
Yeah.
stops that you're going to make along the way, and readjustments, but your journey continues. But you have a choice if you want that journey to continue. So I think at that point they said they want their competitive journey to stop, and I don't think they.
Wow.
I
ever
love
competed.
that
Yeah.
part. Interesting. So it's like they saw it as like you saw. You probably like, it's a win or it's a learn. They saw it as a loss
Yeah.
and a failure, and that's the quit point.
Yeah, and
so they decided to quit.
They said to quit, and I
Wow.
don't think I ever saw them at a tournament again.
Wow.
So I was supposed to go back to Dr. Gibbs's club the following week after and just kind of like reanalyze everything, but they decided not to show up. So I was like, okay, well, no problem. I mean, I'm here if you guys need me, but
Yeah.
clearly this is not what you want, so that's fine.
So that was the first time working with Authentic Taekwondo, and then what was the next one?
So the next one, so I retired like shortly after. So this was around 2005, 2006, and
You
around
retired
2007, I retired from competition. So at
From
that time, I
competition.
was still competing.
Okay.
But in 2007, I decided to retire completely.
Okay.
And so, you know, I wanted to continue working in Taekwondo. I loved it. So
You weren't working in Taekwondo at the time, like professionally, full time as you
not
were
as
doing
a
something
paid,
else.
Not as a paid job.
Right.
No. So I was just training, you know, 5-6 hours just for myself to
Right.
go and compete at different arenas. But in 2007, I approached my own teacher, Master Choung, and I said, "Sir, I'm done competition. You know, our aim was to go to the Beijing Olympics. Obviously, we didn't make it, so I can't really see myself aiming for another 4 years to go to London.
Right.
So I want to stop and kind of like start
I
my
remember
life.
that London.
London Olympics, yeah,
That old.
2012.
Okay.
And so
It's very recent, actually, isn't it? It's only
It-
within the last
10 years
10 years
ago.
ago.
yeah. But I was in my late 20s, and I feel like I had put my life at a pause to try to accomplish, compete,
yeah.
and do
Sure.
all the things I needed to do. But at that point, I was like, okay, you know what? I need to get my career in check. And so I had done a lot of different jobs, but it wasn't what I wanted. So I really wanted to do Taekwondo. So Master Choung said, I don't really have anything for you. If you want to come and train here once in a while, or if you want to, volunteer, you're more than welcome to.
What were you looking for when you said, I had done a lot of different jobs? I'm just curious. What were you looking for? You don't have to tell me what you did, but what were you looking for in those jobs? What was it that you were seeking? Money is one thing, obviously, but what kind of things were you looking to do?
I wanted to feel useful. I wanted to feel like I was making a contribution to something of value.
Okay.
I used to work for like a custodian. And to be honest with you, I never really understood what the purpose of the custodian was. It was just feel like it was a job that...
What's a custodian?
Like a janitor.
Okay.
Custodian, but for a financial institution.
Oh, for
Yeah,
financial.
that's what I was
See,
trying to
okay,
understand.
I had a different. I had a different.
So custodians, it was, I don't want to say the name of the company, but anyway, it was a U.S. and Canadian bank
don't
that
know
had
what
merged
it
together.
Sure. It doesn't matter.
So
but
basically,
like you're
they
working
hold assets
Okay.
for different institutions, and then they use those assets to basically earn money on them and stuff like that. So
it's like a middleman.
Middleman, exactly.
So
yeah.
you're working with a bank. It's okay. It's a
Yeah.
professional role.
It was a professional role.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm putting my economics degree in check. And
okay.
So,
so you got the degree. You're using it.
I got the degree. I'm using it, but it's
you
not.
don't feel-
But I don't feel like
It doesn't align with
doesn't
you.
align with. I don't feel like I'm making a difference in the world. I'm just being told what to do. I have no real say in anything, like in terms of like the work process, making someone's life better, feeling like I'm actually using my own intuition in terms of like development. It's just like I know XYZ has to be done today, and that's it. I do it. I'm done. 5 o'clock. I check out.
Right.
And it wasn't. I just felt like I wasn't really growing as a person, or I didn't really feel like I was being useful in helping anybody, to be honest with you.
And you gave it a good go. Like you're obviously applying your knowledge, right?
I was there for 3.5 years. And then, my friend of mine called. He worked for a car dealership, and he said, "Listen, I sell cars, but I'm looking for somebody who could do marketing.
Okay.
So if you want to come and try your skills here,
Right.
I can give you an idea of where we want to market, and you can." Call around and get pricing and things like that.
The call from the friend. That happens.
Yeah,
You
so
hear that?
I was ready. I was ready to leave. I just felt like I wasn't. being
Any
useful
opportunity
there.
is an opportunity. Yeah.
And obviously you offered me a little bit more money too.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I left. To be honest with you, I worked at the dealership for like 3 weeks, and that didn't go very well. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think my friend and I, we both quit together.
So your friend,
so
I thought
funny.
it was your friend's dealership.
It wasn't my friend's dealership. He worked there as one of the managers, but I think he had enough of that location as well. So we both quit. And then
May I ask?
Yeah.
Because when you say you quit, you're not a quitter, from how I know. So the word quit, it's like what didn't align is what I want to understand. Like you're helping people get. Like, was it culture? Was it when you said 3 weeks? Come on, it had to be something pretty obvious to you, right?
So I just didn't like the interest rates that they were charging on like newcomers.
So like
and
that's
things
important
like
to
that.
understand.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So obviously he was a used car sales manager, and so their whole thing was like no credit, bad credit, doesn't matter, come in, and they're charging like 20%. 25% interest on these people who have no idea.
They have no idea. Don't have a baseline
and they
income
have a baseline.
anyway.
And it's like, honestly, to say no to, to a car salesperson, it takes a lot of.
It does. It takes a lot of
You're
strength.
trained on
You're trained on like closing that deal. So
Yeah.
when you walk into a dealership, I remember being in some of their meetings, and it's like when people walk into a dealership, they come in to buy a car, so they shouldn't leave without a car. So your job is to get them into a car.
And they try to leverage the personal details that you
My gosh,
share
the
too,
pressure
right?
that they put on
Yeah.
you to sign that paper was incredible. And so
Conscientious.
Yeah. What I love
doesn't
about
just
this
happen
though
to lawyers.
is that like
Okay,
there's
it happens to
it
salespeople.
happens to
It hap-
everyone.
Isn't that
There's
interesting?
so many of us get locked into these jobs and stay with it and stay with it for sometimes like until retirement. And then hoping, okay, now I'm going to retire. Now I can start my life with what aligns, because the pressure of the paycheck is just so big. But I think you're being true to something for yourself by honoring that part of.
it was
I'm
just
not,
hard to see that. It was just, I
Yeah.
couldn't
So you
see
weren't
that.
able to do this and say, look, I just got to do my job, put aside my feelings.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just gonna do
so
my
great
job.
to honor that.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
Like-
It didn't feel
Do you
right.
think
I mean,
Taekwondo had an influence on that?
I'm not sure, but I just saw myself and I
Well, I
saw
think
my
you knew
parents
yourself
in that
better.
seat. Yeah, and it's like, you know what? They don't know any better. They come here to try and build their credit,
Right.
and they have a choice of how much interest they're going to charge, and obviously they maximize it, and that it didn't align with me. So I was like, you know what? I don't really feel useful. I feel like useless. You know, I can't
Yeah.
really make it. You know, and so I don't want to have anything to do with that, and I just.
Like one of the tenets is integrity. I mean,
Yeah.
That's a big thing. And when you're around that environment, even though you're competing in Taekwondo, when you're during that phase, and you're winning or not or whatever, the integrity piece can never be let go. It's really in martial arts. I think they really do a good job of like keeping that in the forefront, in the background, everywhere in what you do. So
To
when
kinda
you step
guide
into
everything.
so when we step into an environment where you're in like others don't have that constantly being put in front of them. You're training 5-6 hours a day. You think you're training to compete, but you're also training these things into you. And when you walk into an environment where integrity, it's like, what do you mean integrity? Do your job.
It's not even a word
and you're
for
like,
them,
no, right?
Yeah.
Others don't always have that.
No.
And I really do believe that that's a big thing about martial arts and Taekwondo, the way they teach it, the way you teach it as well, and you put it in the forefront and you drill it over and over and over again. It's not just for competition, it's for everything.
It's for life.
And when you walked into that environment, you presumed going in that integrity was a given, but it wasn't. I just wanted to dig a little deeper there to understand it, because you might not think that it was a big deal, but it's
a huge deal. It's a huge deal.
Another guy stays and says, forget it.
But I think you're right. I think
Let me not quit so quickly. You know?
Yeah, I think the Taekwondo journey is feeding into it though, because
Yeah.
a lot of people at 28, 29 don't always know themselves, right? They've never done that kind of. I know I certainly didn't, right? So like, I didn't know myself as well to be able to say no. I'm not doing that enough to like leave a job, right? Just because it's such a terrifying thing to do, to be without a job, right? So yeah.
It almost goes against the competitor in you. Like, don't quit. But you said yourself, your words were, I quit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was okay.
And it was okay because
It's not-
it didn't align with my values.
Either you quit the job or you quit who you are.
Yeah. So
Right?
I know that I knew that I couldn't realistically
Got it.
make any difference in the place that I was. I was actually trying my hand at something completely new, which was marketing.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel like they needed me. And at the same time, being in those sales scenarios where they're sitting with somebody who has been in Canada for the past 2-3 months, and they're just looking to build their credit, get around and stuff like that, and then knowing that they can't really afford it and putting this extra interest on them and selling the car at a value that's arbitrary, it just didn't align very
Yeah,
well. And
it's not
it
good.
was hard to sit in those things. Yes, once, twice, but it's on a daily basis, and it just becomes like,
Too toxic.
Too
Yeah.
toxic. I can't do this.
So then what happened?
So I quit.
How
I
does
didn't
that
have a
bring
job.
you? That brings, so now you don't have a job.
Yeah, so I didn't have a job.
You ended up as a
for-
volunteer there with Master Choung.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but then eventually, so obviously I'm still fresh from my competition days. And so I approached one club that's very successful in Burlington. That time it was called Kicks for Kids.
Okay.
And they had over like 100 students of after school program alone. An after school program is incredibly lucrative because they basically, it's an after school care. So, you charge up to like $500
A month,
per person at that time. I'm sure it's a lot more now. But anyway, he was doing really well. But the problem with him was his image was, basically it's a babysitting place. So he wanted to bring somebody who had high performance skills to be able to develop some students and go to tournaments.
Really put value into
and
it.
put value into it and be like, we're not just a babysitting. We're like a genuine martial arts places
That's
where
great.
we can bring our credit up. So he said, come out and do a session with my students and see, and if everything works well, we can talk about getting you here full time. So I was like, great. And I just remember going there, and it's like, again, it's a bunch of kids who had never seen high performance competition before, and just kicking those targets at the speed and precision, I could just see like their eyes lit up, and it felt,
Yes.
when you do it around people that kids
It's a
see
great
all the
energy.
time, it's
Yeah.
good. But when people see it for the first time,
They just
it's-
lose it. Yeah.
they love it, and
Yes,
so
yes.
you love that
exchange.
bond, that
yeah.
exchange. They want to see it, you want to perform, and then just like, well, you can do it too.
Yeah.
And so I think then the relationship began. And to be honest, within they were just, nobody really respected them as competitors.
Right.
But within a year, like they were one of the top schools in Ontario.
Really?
Yeah.
Were you the only one who had come in for this purpose? Or
I
were
was
there
the only
others?
one. They had a coach at that time, but maybe the coach wasn't as influential.
Sure.
So I just felt like I demanded more from them.
Right.
When you go to tournaments as well, that sense of comfort is important. So I had been in that environment for
Yeah,
so
of
long.
course.
And
I
your
knew-
playfulness
the
too,
playfulness.
like the conversation started with your playfulness, right?
Yeah.
And that's always your first in with kids at any age. Is if you can be playful, then you have an audience,
Yeah.
right?
And to be playful
yeah.
in a tense
and in a
moment
teaching
as well.
way,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because at the tournament they're very tense, they're nervous,
Right.
they're anxious
Gotta
about what's
shake
going
it
to
off.
happen. But if you're kind of like joking around with them,
Right.
breaking that tension, getting their mind off of competition completely, to be able to like just let them relax for a
Yeah.
moment and then get back on track, it helps them perform a lot better.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, obviously, again, they didn't win right from the beginning either.
Sure.
But I had explained it on from early on. Like, listen, guys,
it's a journey.
It's
yeah.
a journey. Take your time. Let's learn. Let's find out who we are. Let's find out what our strengths are, first of all. What your strengths are at the training center is not
Yeah.
the same as in tournament. Let's see what actually comes out at the events. So through time, they started to build up, and then while I was doing that, I was also saving up money. So around 2009, February, Dr. Gibbs sent me a message and said, I want to have a meeting with you. And I was like, okay, great.
You still
That's
in it? Did you
interesting.
have your coaching thing sorted out by now? Or
Not
no?
yet. So
Okay.
NCCP was kind of like in its infancy at that time. They
Right.
were just becoming more organized in terms of like
Okay.
certifying official coaches. So he said, so we met around in February of 2009, and he said, Akmal, I've been a dentist for more than 20 years of my life, or
Yeah.
however long it had been. And I've been running the school for, the 9 years or 8 years that it's been. And, my life is very busy.
Yeah.
I wake up early in the morning, I'm a dentist, right away I come to school, I get home by like 9, 10 o'clock. Like that's my day for the past 10 years. I need to enjoy my life. And I said, that's amazing, because
Right.
you know what? I'm at a point where I'm ready to start my own. And it was like that perfect moment.
Just a bridge.
Just a bridge. We had no idea this was going to happen. I had no idea what he wanted to offer. And so I was like, great. So by June of 2009, we had signed all the paperwork that I was going to take over. And it's been an incredible journey of running my own organization since then.
When you were going into it, so this is now like the competitor turn
Business
coach
person. Yeah.
turn business person with some custodian work. And I mean, you learn from those experiences too, right? Like when you went into to running this business, now, were you thinking of it as running a school, or were you thinking of it as running a business? What were you thinking?
I was thinking of running it as a school.
Yes.
I really didn't know much about the business. I learned a little bit about the business from Kicks for Kids because they
Right.
had a really good system in place.
But that's not the business, that's the school.
That's the school. But
Yeah.
even just the simple things like interacting with the parents.
Okay.
That was one of my challenges. I like dealing with athletes because
Right.
we speak the same
Yeah.
language.
Yes.
This is what we're doing. This
Yeah.
is what's going on. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know how you're feeling. This is the drills. This is where we're gonna build your flexibility and your strengths.
It's a piece of the puzzle.
Piece of the puzzle. But then to be able to go and talk to the parents
That's
and
another
get
piece.
them to
That's a
like
whole
That's
other
another,
piece.
that's another job.
Oh,
yeah.
it is.
and
Yeah.
it was a
100%.
tough job.
Yeah.
I really wasn't very good at
Because
it.
parents
I never,
have expectations too, because from a service perspective,
Yeah.
they're like, "Well, I'm paying for a service," and
And the
sometimes
trainer, the athlete, doesn't care for all
I've seen that with my
His
kids in
focus is the
sports,
student.
where they're getting mad at coaches
Yeah.
because their child isn't achieving to the level level that they want.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
or they
that's
want
a-
like reports on like how their kids are
Yes.
doing. So I always
That's
felt
a
like I
thing
was
too.
sheltered at Young Choung Taekwondo because
Yeah.
Master Choung did that.
Yes.
And I felt sheltered at Kicks for Kids because the owner of that school did that. I never had to deal with
Yeah.
parents. It's like, talk to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're
My
running
job
this.
was
So you
easy.
go in thinking that I'm going to run a school.
Run a school.
Not I'm going to
Yeah.
run a business.
Yeah.
Do you know how often that happens going into
Right here.
like ventures?
Yeah.
I'm doing this because I've got a skill. I'm helping. I'm useful.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't I succeed at having this business? So you're going in, but that is, I think, also I honestly think, as a person who's come from business and who's been in business, some people, I talk to them and I ask them, so what's your goal? What are you trying to do here as a business? And it's like, make profit. Mm-hmm. It's I was going to say the MBA way, but it's not the MBA way, but it's like the business person's way. Well, why do you do anything? To make money. Whereas the person who comes from the point of view of the
Have a
actual
passion, yeah.
the actual skill set is like, I'm here to serve my client. I'm here to build a student, help people compete. You hear two very different.
Follow my passion, you hear.
Very,
right?
very
Yeah.
different. And both of them, I look at them and go, uh-oh, have you thought about the other side? So with the business, do you care about your client? Do you care about your community? Do you care about your staff? And the other person is like, have you thought about your break-even points? Have you thought about, your supply and your demand and your competition? But neither one of them considered the other. It doesn't really matter because here you are at the end of the day. I think that that's an interesting way that you arrived to this point, is that your goal was to run a school. And also that you were running it with Master Gibbs as the person you connected with. So there was certain things that you were looking for perhaps that you've seen. You've had experiences dealing with all kinds of people. You've traveled the world. So what is it about Master Gibbs that attracted you to work with him specifically?
So I obviously wanted it to be somewhere where it was a family community type of place, a family neighborhood, at a beautiful location. It really is like Authentic Taekwondo. It's high ceilings, big facility, 5,000 square feet. Summertime's training is really beautiful because you have the front door and the back door open, and you have
nice
fresh air,
breeze.
beautiful breeze.
Sure.
And especially during COVID times, it has really
Sure.
helped a lot.
Sure.
Just keeping people's tensions low. But obviously, Dr. Gibbs wanted to basically pass the baton on.
Okay.
I don't think he wanted
to let go.
Yeah.
He wanted to let go.
Okay.
Obviously I appreciate his feedback throughout the time that I was running the business and some of the challenges I was facing.
Yeah.
For him to always be there and offer his advice, I really appreciate that. But in terms of him actually being involved in the nuts and bolts of the business, he wasn't.
So he
involved.
mentored you through that like he did through Taekwondo.
Yeah,
and a bit,
he did mentor me a little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would be like, you know what? Some parents are, they're complaining about their kids not winning or things like that, and just for him saying like, who cares what they think?
So he stepped
Just
up.
to validate
Yeah,
that
just
that's
to-
okay. That yeah.
So he would, he would offer that advice, and
Because he was the founder, so they'd go to him, right, initially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But obviously, I was the face of the organization
Yeah.
now, and he was still in his dentistry. So, the parents didn't really have,
Didn't
any
have
kind
access,
of
yeah.
access to him. So they would always go through me.
I remember when I joined, I forget the year I joined, but his presence was still there at that time, very much so. I noticed it, and I knew he was the founder, and I knew you were there, and sometimes I'd be like, that's interesting. You have a great dynamic between the two of you. It's really, at the end of the day, like you can say, whose show is it? It was, I could tell, this is, Master Farah's, gig, is your show. But it's interesting because I would see him, like when you would say that you would see him supporting you by saying something. What was amazing is what you wouldn't see him doing, right? Like all the things that he would be doing when you were not present, and how he supported still the club and yourself. I thought that was really interesting that he did that in a really, really, really good way. So it's
What
amazing.
did you see? Like what was he doing?
So what's amazing is that like you would see the times that he was supporting you, or sometimes you might even notice that it was like, where's the support, right? Because you're like, I need help with this. But one thing about Master Gibbs that I gotta say that I've noticed about him is everybody has a style. He has a very clear style. And one of his ways in his style is he lets you figure it out. There's two parts to him. I feel is like sometimes he can be. I feel like I have a lot in common with him sometimes because he'll tell you what it is. He'll tell you whether he thinks it's right or not right, and he's very like he's straight up about it. He won't sugarcoat it necessarily, and he believes he's doing you a favor by not sugarcoating it. Mm-hmm. Like old school, some people would call it.
Yeah, I respond well to that.
They call it old school.
Yeah.
And I feel like, okay, it appeals to me. It's like, tell me straight. Give it to me what I need to know right now. So he's got a different, Master Farah's got a very different style. So he would give it to you straight, but in other situations, you kind of look to him you raise a hand towards him.
You just hold a
and
mirror.
He'll hold his hands behind his back going, what? Get yourself up.
Yeah.
Again, that's also old school sometimes.
Yeah.
Like the nurturer, he's all of a sudden gone. And I just thought that the way he would use that to train, because he would also come in as an instructor. And what's great about Authentic Taekwondo is you use different styles of coaching, not just your own. Mm-hmm. Master Farah's been able to bring in and create this, I wouldn't even call it coexistence. It's synergy. It's really good. It works with different styles of instructors. And he understands that these guys do it a different way than he does. Mm-hmm. And he allows it to happen. And it creates for this amazing synergy, like a true ecosystem.
Because different kids learn differently from different instructors too, right? So there's such a benefit for that.
And some people, when they take control of a club, they're like, this is my way. This is my culture. Yeah. I do it too. I gotta be honest, but he leaves room for that.
Yeah, for growth.
So yeah, he learned that somewhere, I think. And yeah, part of it is all credit to you in terms of how you are, but you learn these things intrinsically. So even though Dr. Gibbs had to notice that Master Farah's style is very different from Master Gibbs' style. And you know when it's your club and you got to hand it over to somebody and you see somebody doing it a different way, there is this like, they don't let go. The biggest reason deals fall apart.
I see that with family businesses.
The deal falls apart not because the buyer changed his mind, but the seller was like, not you.
Yeah.
And he knew all of this about you and still let it happen. I think that's huge on his part. It wasn't probably that perfect, and there were moments where it's kind of like, oh, he's not letting go. Sure. But ultimately, he wanted to see that happen. And in spite of all the difference in styles or whatever, I got to tell you, old school guys, they don't necessarily believe that the way Master Farah does it is the way.
Oh, really?
Yes. I'm telling you.
This is all new to me.
I am a little old school, and I don't do it the way Master Farah does it. And when I see him doing it, I'm like, is that actually good? Like, I'm mindful of what he's doing in the class. And I'm like, is that really going to help this kid? Like, is that really going to be okay? Are you doing justice to this kid? Like, is this good for the kid?
Yeah.
And I also say that in line with knowing that this guy's also a national competitor. So hold on a second. Know your place. I haven't.
Check yourself.
I have to, because I think I know what I'm doing. And then I'm like, but I haven't competed at that level. I haven't done what he's done. And if he's at that level and he's doing it this way.
What do I need to learn from that?
Then, I'm going to keep taking notes. Right? So I have a very different style from him.
Yeah.
But I keep taking notes. And I'm like, does that really work? And I got to say, I started doing things his way. Not just inside the club, but outside the club. And that's why I call him the most influential person in my life. Aside from the wife and the parents and all that stuff. But
for you as your own person.
The single most influential person on me in the last 5-10 years. Hands down. Not even close. There hasn't been another person. Sorry, I went on a segue there. But I just feel that, because this has to do with, your goal in terms of how you got there. And you never changed it. And I love that.
But doesn't that speak well to the name too, though?
Yes.
Right?
But,
Authentic Taekwondo.
Yes.
Like the fact that I didn't know this about you, that your style was so diverse or different,
so different.
Right? So the fact that it's so different.
You remember the Karate Kid movie? There's the Mr. Miyagi style. And then there's, what's the other guy? The other guy, there's a show about
Cobra
him.
Kai.
Cobra Kai.
It's very popular right now.
The Cobra Kai, it's big now, right?
On Netflix.
So Cobra Kai was like how things used to be, like go, kill, kill, kill. right?
Yeah.
He is the 100%, the 180-degree opposite of the go kill.
Strike first, strike hard, no mercy.
Right?
This is the Cobra Kai motto.
Oh,
for the movie.
wow.
But he wins. He beats those guys.
Yeah.
So I'm like, where do I want to be, right? Anyway,
Yeah.
we'll talk more about that as well. But like, it's I just thought it's so interesting about him.
Do you notice that about your style, like
Gotta
that you
know
are
this.
so different
You
than
must
other
realize
people?
this.
I just feel like I want to find the strengths within you. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to push you one way or another. I don't think there is a right way or a wrong way. I think it's just your way,
Yeah.
whatever
Right.
you
Yes.
want to do.
Yeah.
And
Just
so
guiding that.
one of the things that happened when I first opened up the business, when I took over the business, is that obviously people knew I was, I love high performance. Like I love competition. This was my driving force for the past 15, 20 years, however long I was competing for. And so a lot of the people that knew I was coming into Markham area, they said, you cannot make fighters out of suburban kids.
Yeah.
They're very, they're very soft, like they're very gentle. That's not their demeanor. You can't go and get them to fight at an international level. And so when people were saying you can't do something, it
It's like,
makes me
whoa,
okay.
whoa, no. Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
I think they do. I think we can. And so when I moved to Markham, people, some people heard that I was taking over this place. And so some of the high performance athletes from other clubs that maybe they weren't happy where they were, from 2009, 2010, I had already developed a few color belts that were going to like local events, and they saw their progress. And then they said, well, wait a minute, if we're not really progressing in our own clubs, by 2010, they started to come to Authentic Taekwondo.
And by the way, he says that in passing. They would drive an hour and a half from,
Wow.
like we're talking, like not
That's
just 5-10
commitment.
minutes.
Yeah.
You know how you look for a club within,
Believe me, having boys in
Right?
sports, yeah,
They would drive.
driving is a big thing in the GTA.
and on the distance between where they live to where the club is, there's hundreds of clubs along the way
yeah.
that they could stop in,
So there's a choice. Yeah.
and they go here.
And I knew that, and I was grateful for that. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that I was able to provide, because now they're depending on me.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so now
coming
there's the
from-
pressure
now
too,
there's
I
the
guess.
pressure.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I was like,
Oh.
you know what? That's the most flattering
Because
thing
that's
you've
more
done.
of what
Yes.
you intended to do with your whole purpose, is to be there to create something for people or hold space for people. in a
And they
way
were
that's
coming
meaningful.
from Barrie and Guelph and
Wow.
Oakville, and so through traffic, like coming
Yeah,
from
that's
Mississauga
like
to
no
Markham,
joke.
5 days
and
a week.
yeah, 5 days a week. It's incredible through snowstorms. Honestly,
Yeah.
whatever
Bringing
the
their
weather, they were
homework,
there.
like it's,
It was.
I've seen it.
It was beautiful. It
Yeah.
was, and then by 2012, we created our first junior national champion. One of the kids that was coming from Barrie, now he had won nationals, and he was going to represent Canada at the Pan Am Championships in Mexico.
Amazing.
We went to Mexico in 2013, and we won gold medal for Canada, and this was huge. 2014, we had developed a youth Olympic game qualification spot in Taiwan from another one of our athletes, and they were all very young. We started with them maybe when they were like 8, 9, 10 years old, and by the time they were like 14, 15, they were winning huge competitions. And my relationship with the parents was developing a lot better. They trusted me, and I appreciated that. And so whenever I said, hey, we're going to these tournaments throughout the year, I had a plan of like, these are the events that we're going to go to. It would, by the end of the year, it cost them like $15,000, $20,000.
Yeah.
And after they had done competition, I realized that some of the parents, even though they couldn't afford it, they had taken out basically a second mortgage to try and like
To do this.
to do this for their kids. And all that is like,
and they wouldn't regret that move either.
not at all. They're proud of their kids' development and their
Yeah.
dedication. Their training was so intense. Like
Yeah.
we were training sometimes early in the morning, and then I would drive them to school. So we would train at like 7 o'clock until like 8:30, and then by like 9 o'clock I would drop them off to their schools. Then after school they would come again from like 3:30 to like 4:30 or 5 o'clock, they would train again. And then between 5 and 8 o'clock, they'd do their homework. And then 8 to 10 was their class time for high performance. So they were training 3 times a week.
Wow.
But my mindset was like, well, if you're going to go and train against somebody from Korea or Egypt, where they have schools of Taekwondo training specifically for high performance,
And they sometimes teach math and science.
Sometimes, yeah, but
it's all there. It's all encompassed.
Yeah, it's all encompassing.
Yeah, there's
and,
a sports school.
and
yeah.
they're trying to. This is how they create a name for themselves to be able to survive in their own society.
Yeah.
Because without getting out of the average by doing this, they're gonna be basically fighting for food their whole
Their
life.
opportunities
Yeah.
are very limited. Yeah.
So this was their So
Yeah.
you're a Canadian living
Their
a
life
very
depends on it.
luxurious lifestyle,
Things
and
I
you're
knew nothing about.
yeah,
Wow.
and you're fighting against people who are fighting for
For
life
survival.
opportunity.
Life, for
Absolutely.
food, yeah.
So you tell me how badly you want it. Do you want to do these 3 training sessions where you're go?
Because
Or
they're
you wanna-
working twice as hard as you, and you're working
Absolutely.
this hard. Yeah.
Absolutely, and they're working at a much intense pace.
Yeah.
So we were seeing results because of our commitment and their trust in the development of their program.
Yeah. I love how you built in like the dinner and the homework time too. Like that's there's such a cohesiveness about that in community because like it's like the learning still continues because I'm sure the kids would help each other out and because you have
They
different
actually would.
ages and grades.
Yeah, and even some of the younger kids would come in and watch them do their homework. Then they would do their homework
Right.
too,
Yeah.
and they
It's
had
just
nothing to do with the
so
program.
many
And
things
by the
that are
way,
beneficial
when Master
from
Farah is
that.
like running, okay, maybe not so much for the high performance guys, but they get it by that time. But even when he's running a regular class, it's not just okay, punch, kick, block, all that kind of stuff. It's then sit down and talk about parents and listening and talk about sleeping and talk about doing homework. It's not just, what was
Yeah.
that Cobra Kai motto? Whatever it was, who cares? It's so irrelevant. But you get what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah.
a complete, like a
It's a
balance.
holistic package. What
Yes.
a person needs to be successful. You
Yeah.
need to give to all the parts.
It's not
right?
like a Taekwondo school. It's like a
Yeah.
school of life. Like it's all
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
I just feel like the lessons that we learn from high performance is so applicable to our day-to-day life.
100%.
If we want to be successful in anything, we have to have a routine. We have to be disciplined.
Yeah.
We have to sleep on time. We have to get enough
Starting to
sleep.
sound old school.
We have
Yeah.
we have to eat
do.
properly.
He uses it.
Nutrition is important.
Yeah.
Our dedication, our commitment to
Yeah.
our craft is important. Otherwise, what's the point of doing it? So, if you're sleeping whenever and then waking up whenever, but then, how do you expect to be at your physical best
Right.
to be able to perform, stand in front of people, whatever you have to do to present or anything, if you're not there? If you didn't spend enough time doing your homework to be able to do that presentation, how are you going to be able to do it? So, those are the high performance values that we were kind of like giving to the average kids to help them develop. I mean, if you're not doing your homework, how do you expect to get
Yeah.
the results and marks that you need?
So you've got this. You're proving suburban kids can win. Can win at a high level under your coaching, or doing it a certain way, right? This is now moving into years like that come through, and then the school's growing, right? There's a lot of new members, and that part of it is working. And you hear the passion, right, when you hear talk about the school. And I don't want to pour like cold water on it, but there's the business end of it. Were you paying any attention at all to any of that stuff? Because it's running automatically now. Were there challenges for you along that side as well? Did you notice
For sure. I mean, I have some experience in my accounting degree, taking some accounting courses,
Right.
making sure that, we're in the black and, we're able to pay our bills and things
Right.
like that.
It's a lot to manage, right?
It's a lot to
Yeah.
manage, but at the same time, I think when you love something so much, you forget about the difficulties.
Yeah.
I think in every point in our life when we're trying to do something,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
always somebody in the back of our mind saying, is it time to quit now?
Yeah.
Are you going to stop now? Have you had enough? Like this, But if you love something so much, like you don't hear that.
But you love Taekwondo and you love teaching. You don't love accounting.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. And so, so often when there's this lack of love for it, let's just
Yeah.
say, you kind of like, "Ugh, Like, I'll get to it, or I don't want to deal with it.
I remember having this conversation with my dad. He's a master carpenter.
Okay.
And
Yes.
so that's an art form,
Yes.
right? Like you give him a piece of wood, he'll figure out. Like he's
Wow.
got it
Yeah.
done. But then, you know, when my parents separated, my mom handled the books. She was the bookkeeper and handled the whole business side of it. So then when they
Nice.
separated, he had to learn to do all of this. And that's something that he had to really reconcile with
Yeah.
because
Reconcile,
this was
the
his,
accounting.
his passion, right? And then all these things that he never did and was not passionate about. And I remember him sitting there with all the paperwork everywhere one day, and he was going to get in it. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, I'm going to change my relationship to it. He's like, the invoicing is now the best part of my job because it means I'm doing more and more and more of what I love.
Oh, I love
and I'm
it.
like, okay,
That's
that's a good
amazing.
way to shift because he had piles of stuff and he was so behind. He's like, that's it. I'm changing it today because this is a good part of it. It's not my best part of it, but it just shows I'm doing what I love more, right?
So you just attached it to
yeah,
it
you
as
just
well.
have to.
For me, it wasn't. I just didn't feel like I was 100% focused on the business.
Yeah.
And I feel like, obviously I had somebody at the front desk helping me out. That was a huge help to be able to collect the monthly fees
Right.
and things like that, where I could just focus on the class. And so even just the parent sides, up to this day, I still have difficulty asking people for their membership fees because
Yeah.
it's just
It's your
I can't-
passion.
it's in my passion. I can't really put a value on it, but
Yeah.
at the same time,
It's
it's
not a
like
good business practice.
it's not a
No,
good
you
practice.
have
Yeah.
friends and you have an employee.
It's a really
and you
bad
have-
business
Yeah.
practice, actually.
Yeah.
But you know
Right?
what? On the flip side of it, people have really this pandemic. I've had so many phone calls from parents saying we're not coming, but keep charging us. It really blows my mind. Like, no, I'm not charging you. This is still a business. We're not a charity. So I
Yeah.
appreciate your offer. It
But
really
just
means a lot to
shows
me.
that's a family
It
connection.
is a family connection.
Yeah.
And so, it's not a business. It is a business, but it's not really a business.
Yeah.
It's a passion, but there's a lot, I don't want to muddy the waters.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is something I enjoy doing. And I think people see it. And so we've been able to survive for the amount of time that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I don't have the business, I understand how to, try to make things work. I see that I have bills to pay. I see that I have a bunch of students that need my attention. So I try to balance it out. Obviously, the business could have grown a lot more. There's people that have been in business way shorter than I have that have been a lot more successful in terms of like the number of students or the number of locations that they've had. But my priority has always been the quality of my students, and my focus has been to try and share that love and that passion that I have with as many people as possible. And so if I can get more people to share that with, great. If not, whoever's there, I'll
It's
make sure that I
perfect,
give them the
yeah.
best.
Yeah.
Sounds like very fairy tale-ish, right? All happy days? Or
You're just
You-
looking for the story.
no, I know actually something did happen. Something,
Oh, okay.
something very big
Okay.
in his discovery of the school itself. You see, he talked about coming to a family environment, right? And then he built up this very high performance, high successful competitive players, right? Athletes. Then something happened. Like you have this fairy tale, you're living it, the light is on and it's bright. And then what happened? Are you okay to talk about this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Like this is the school itself,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Well,
I'm not talking about the family. I'm talking about at the school. There was something that happened, and there was a huge discovery out of it. If you're okay to share.
Well, I think the main thing that happened was that obviously I had my own family.
Yeah.
And so my own family, when you're a high performance coach, you're traveling every month, going to different places. But, when you have a wife and a child on the way, they need a lot more of your time and things like that. So at that point, I was like, okay, I can't really be a high performance coach. I have to be a high performance dad.
Yeah.
I like that.
You know?
I like that.
So
Yeah.
I have to make sure that
Is
I'm
there
there.
any other
with them.
way? Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
want to make sure that I'm there for my son and spend as much time as I can with my family. And so not being able to travel was obviously affecting these high performance athletes. So I told them, I said, you know what, this is the school that I come from. They're still very high performance. you guys should go there. But some people were already kind of like deciding that they were going to go on their own anyway, because they saw that I wasn't really as 100% focused on them, because I was going through that
You
transition.
had another job, for lack of a better word, added to
Yeah.
your repertoire, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So from a club perspective, we have these high performance athletes who are like demigods walking around in the club. And they are like, we see them training and we're like, oh, wow, that's so-and-so and that's so-and-so. And they walk around, we're like, that's so-and-so. And you see their pictures on the wall. And now they're not there. And as students in the club, we notice these things. And we're like, I wonder why. And I wonder what's going on. Or their energy is no longer there. Because when they train, they move different. You could hear them. We'd be in a different class. They're in a different class. And you hear them, and you're like, oh, that's so-and-so. That you can tell who's there. But then when they're not, like we feed off of that energy.
Yeah, that energy is
and that must have been a
inspiring.
concern, that now they're not here. Now what? And it's like almost like, not a crisis, but it is actually, because it's a big piece of the puzzle. It's their core energy to that group. They're instructors, they're leaders, they're mentors, and now they're not there.
Yeah.
And
For
there's
sure.
this big void now.
For sure. I think it was a huge transition point for our club at that point. That intensity, those hitting the pads as hard as you can,
Yeah.
inspiring the next generation
Yeah.
of students through those
Yeah.
classes wasn't really there, but the instructors, everybody else was still there. And so, the blueprint to developing the next generation
Right.
was still there. So, people had a choice. They could follow the people that were leaving, or they could stay. And definitely some people left, but I think majority of the people stayed. And I think those who have stayed have been with us
Yeah.
until today.
So that's why I stayed too, because the blueprint was, see how he says
Yeah.
the blueprint is still there? And I love that. That really needs to come out, because he
Yeah.
never looked at it as,
Oh,
God,
yeah,
it's
this is
falling
the
apart.
end. Yeah.
My clients are leaving. It's,
Well-
wait a second, the instructors are still
Yeah.
there. The blueprint is still
But that's
there.
part of the
I love how
journey
you said
too,
that.
right? Their journey is taking them somewhere else.
And you didn't get
where-
all anxious about it. like-
Yeah.
It's hard to say that you have to give them, because
yeah.
Taekwondo, it's like you develop, it's a problem, but because you develop people from infancy all the way to their Olympic dreams.
Right.
It's not like the NHL or NBA where you go to college and then you get drafted to an
You're
NBA.
with the-
you're
Yeah.
with the same person.
There's
the
like a
whole
lot
time.
of emotional investment.
Yeah.
Right?
And at the same time, it's like, if you do go to somebody else, it's a form of betrayal. But I
Yeah,
think
and that's the word I had in my head. That's
it
what I
is.
was thinking.
And so,
yeah.
but at the same time, it's like,
How did you deal with that?
I
It's a
was
real feeling.
It was a real feeling. So obviously, at first when it happened, I was like, okay, well, I think you could have done it in a better way.
Oh.
Maybe sit with me, talk to me, tell me my
Right.
shortcomings
Yeah.
so that I can
We
help
can work
you.
on
We can
this,
work on
yeah.
this. But at the same time, I knew that I wasn't. So, my one specific time. My wife is pregnant, and I'm going to a tournament in like Montreal or Calgary or something. I can't remember. But I had told my wife that if you need anything, call me anytime. Like I'm a phone call away. Like I know I'm far away, but if you need something, call me. So I'm pretty disciplined when it comes to coaching. Like I'm very disciplined. Like I put my students, my athletes as a priority. So their needs come first. But obviously, if my wife needs, I have to
Yeah.
pick up that phone call. So, some parents at that time were like, well, you're kind of like walking towards the arena, but you're on your phone. So that's a huge no-no to me.
Yeah.
And I understand and I respect that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if it's my wife and she needs me,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be like, I can't talk to you right
Yeah.
now. So,
Right.
if it's something important, urgent, I want to hear it. If it's not, okay, I will call you back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for them to say that, I was like, okay, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, then this is not the place for you.
Yeah.
Because obviously, I know myself.
Yeah.
I don't take your journey for granted. Be like, okay, you're with me, so I can do whatever I want
Yeah.
now. But they thought that I was kind of like taking it for granted. So I was like,
No.
okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. So then, the way cleared, and then I guess it's like
It's like a rebuild.
rebuilding and
It's a rebuild.
rebranding and like redefining yourself. Like, who are you now as a, you're not a high performance coach anymore, but who are you? So I think this is where we go
Yeah.
back into that teaching the high performance lessons to the people that just want to do it for
Right.
exercise, and applying those lessons to their day-to-day life. So, talking to them about discipline, talking to them about respecting your opponent, talking to them about respecting your teachers, your adversaries, whoever it is, understand, and then just work together. And then you will have wins and losses in your life. Even though you're not doing high performance, appreciate the failures, take the lessons from them. Don't make it the quitting moment. Keep moving and learning from it, and applying those lessons. And so, little things like, as athletes before a match, we're visualizing ourselves way in advance, a month before. I'm visualizing myself at my absolute best. Well, we can take those tools and use it to the day-to-day average person's
Yeah.
life as well.
Passing
To
a math
visualize,
test.
yeah, absolutely. You have a job interview.
Yeah.
Visualize yourself sitting in front in the interview, and then talking about the things you want to talk about. So these are the things that we take those lessons. We're not really developing high performance athletes at that level of international anymore, but we can still use those lessons. So
Yeah.
to get that excitement in people, like, hey, you want to make your kicks and punches better, you have to train at a certain intensity. You have to train with a certain intent to improve. The concept of like practice makes perfect. Now it's like perfect practice makes perfect. So you have to train a certain way to get the results that you want.
Yeah.
So you see why I call him influential.
I love
like
it.
For the last,
I love it.
because it's not just Taekwondo. And
Yeah,
if it wasn't for that, like, it's not just me, my family, kids, everybody. It's not just like applicable there at Taekwondo.
Yeah.
So you've rebuilt, you've redefined, and then in 2020,
COVID hit.
and I'm not going to do the COVID discussion, but it's interesting because who saw that coming?
But it impacts business, right? It's
100%.
an experience everyone went through.
100%. And, safety, health of other people and all that kind of stuff, fine. But now everything that you have built and rebuilt now, it's like, closed down. And I say this because it's been 2 years. And there are martial arts clubs that have been around, and you won't just hear about clubs, but all kinds of businesses
They
that
haven't
have been
opened.
around for 10, 15 years that have not paused, but are out of business. Like, they're not coming back.
No.
And in this industry, it's hands-on. You're holding a person's leg like this.
Yeah.
There's contact. There's proximity. Some people say, how with lawyers it's like, you fax it. Can you email it? No, this is how it's done, or it's couriered. This is how
Yeah.
Taekwondo martial arts is taught. It's not taught any other way but
Online,
in person.
yeah, it's
not taught online.
Yeah.
But what happens? Like, everybody, it's one day it's like at a peak, and you did rebuild it. It came strong, and then the next day, it goes from 100 to like 0. It can't.
So
And what
it's interesting how things happen. I think maybe sometime in January of 2020, I was in a marketing meeting on Zoom, on a Zoom call. My first time ever being on Zoom. I didn't even know what Zoom was. They sent me a link. I went on Zoom, and I see all these little windows. And so by March, we're kind of, the number of participants is dwindling. People are not really interested in coming and training in person because of this virus. And so, in a class of like 20, 30 people, now there's like 4 or 5 people in a class. So I knew that something was going to happen, like something, I think at that time they weren't really calling it a pandemic. So I was like, okay, guys, we're going to go right off classes. And I think we were one of the first clubs to go online. So I sent the link to everybody. I created my own Zoom account. I bought the membership, and then I said, here's the account. Let's go on Zoom and we're gonna train. And obviously the first one was a disaster because everybody's unmuted and we're trying to train and no one can hear me.
Gosh.
So there's a lot going on, but we learned from that. So we were like, okay, that was a great session, guys. Thank you so much for being here and giving me this opportunity to be on Zoom. But then we got better. We learned to mute people. We learned to add music.
Yeah.
And so what happened was that I think what frustrated a lot of instructors, a lot of Taekwondo teachers, is expectations. You expect a certain training environment when you're at the studio, and then you cannot expect that same type of training when you're online.
Right.
Because the child or the student who is like 5, 6, 10 years old is in the comfort of their own home.
Yeah.
They're kings and queens of their own castles. So for you to be like proper right from the beginning at home, you're kind of like frustrating yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, when they come to the studio, they're very proper. But at home, you have to give a little bit of leeway. When they get tired, they are going to go and sit on the couch.
Yeah.
They are going to go off the screen and maybe get distracted by something else. So it's okay, but allow that development of discipline and focus
happen in a different
in a
way.
different way over time on Zoom as well. And to be honest with you, now we're in 2022 and 2 years later, it's like an orchestra.
Yes.
Things are moving so in sync that it blows my mind. People with
Wow.
different internet connection and different angles, but they're all moving in sync, and it's a real joy to watch.
Nice.
But it's just being able to understand those expectations very early on help maintain my sanity. And I think a lot of people shut down as soon as they were able
Was
to
there
shut
a concern
down their
about
online.
your sanity at some point?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
There
You-
was a
Well,
concern.
because it's such a
Even you?
visceral thing, right? It's such a
Right.
visceral experience to be an athlete like that, to transfer it online with no formula of how to do it. It's a pretty phenomenal thing. But I think just having the space is just the beginning of it, right? Just having the space and the people show up to the space, that's half the battle, right? And
It's not
So we
just
have-
from a school point of view, it's also a business.
Yeah.
So they're both kind of like fighting
Yeah.
you right now because it's students saying, or parents saying, or even instructors saying, it can't be done this way. Like there's not even a buy-in. There's not even, let's try. It
And for sure.
can't be done this way. Then there's the business end, which is like, you got to make rent or whatever. You got to put food on the table,
in March is when they declared the pandemic. In April of 2020, we lost close to 80% of our business.
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
We were just left with just a handful of students, and we were just what are we gonna do? And so at that moment, I said to myself, and I was like, okay, well, these people still rely on me to provide something, so I'm gonna give them everything I have. And
In a way
we
I can,
created classes 7 days a week. So we were training
Yeah.
classes 6 days a week because we're in lockdown.
Yeah.
Nobody's going out, nobody's doing anything. So I was like, okay, we got to provide something for these people on a daily basis to keep them engaged, to keep them focused, to keep them
Brilliant.
exercising.
Yeah.
From a business point of view, that's brilliant.
But
But I
I
was
see it from
just-
the passionate
But
point
from
of
the
view.
passion point,
Yeah,
you see
they
how it
both
leads with
aligned.
passion?
Yeah.
But the passion leads, but from a
Yeah.
business.
And for me, it was just about serving my community. What can I
Exactly.
do to make sure that they're getting the best? And so at that point, by April, we had lost a lot. But by May, people started to realize we're not going anywhere. We're still in lockdown. This is not over. So people start to trickle. And then the people that were with us at that time, and they saw our commitment and the staff and the school's commitment to them, we got a lot of referrals. People started to refer their colleagues. Like,
'Cause
Yeah,
now
because
you
the
can do
other
it
ones
from
would have
anywhere.
you
closed
can do it from
down.
anywhere. You don't have an excuse not to be
Yeah,
active.
it's internet.
So,
yeah.
now we have students from Alberta. We had students in Nova Scotia.
crazy?
We have
That's
students
amazing.
It is.
And these are places like I know I'm from East Coast, and there's not a lot of
There's a lot of
opportunity
it is,
there.
Yeah, but now you can train with whoever you want
Yeah.
from anywhere. So you don't have an excuse not to just sit at home and just watch TV. You can still be active and work with high-level coaches and instructors
Yeah.
from anywhere. So we did much better in May, and then June we were starting to be allowed to open again because we were considered an Olympic sport, which was another thing. Gyms couldn't open until August, but Olympic sports
Olympic sport training
could
facilities.
open, even though we were a recreational facility, obviously.
Yeah.
But because we were considered Olympic sport, we were managed by the Ministry of Sport and Tourism. They gave us direct guidelines to go ahead and open. Whereas Good Life Fitness,
They're
and
under a different
under
umbrella.
and they were frustrated, like why can they do it but they couldn't?
Right.
So anyway, obviously the cases went down quite a bit in the summertime, but then September it hit again. So we were always going on and off. But the good thing
Did
is,
you keep the online going at a certain thing straight through? Well, because I
We
guess you would
were-
have different
Again,
kids across.
another brilliant decision.
Yeah.
we
Could've
never
opted
stopped
not to.
online.
Yeah,
I
because if you
just-
have kids all over the country, yeah.
So I think about this on a regular basis, and it's like, if the pandemic hadn't occurred, who would be training online? Like, it just seems silly. You can just walk into a studio and do it. But because the pandemic happened and nobody had a choice, everybody's training online. At-home training is like the thing right now.
Yeah.
it's become such a normal thing.
Yeah.
Whereas before you used to watch a screen unfollow, it kind of seemed silly, but now it's like
Oh, my
the
son
thing to do.
is. We got a kickboxing thingy and moved all the furniture
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
And like, there's like just a room for him to
A
do
lot
that
of
now.
people have done that.
Yeah.
They've changed a part of their house into like a training facility.
So Authentic Taekwondo now has many branches.
Yeah, but I
it's
love
like-
that. I
yeah.
love the access.
So-
I love
so
that
like
it's
you're like-
something. It's accessible to kids that wouldn't have
You go
normally
from
had
local
access
to
to
national.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice.
And there is an interview with Steve Jobs about your love for what you do, because when you're running a business, there's a lot of times where you have an opportunity to quit or you stop because of the heartaches and the hurdles and the different challenges that you face. But if you don't love it, it's easy to quit.
Yeah,
But if you love it,
Yes.
you'll
you
bear through
you
the
bear through the pain
hard.
and the hard times. Yeah, and obviously this, the pandemic has proven to be very hard on a lot of us, and even the ones who are incredibly positive throughout the entire time. There's a point in the 2
You're
years,
human.
that you're like, you know what? I think I've had enough.
Yeah,
But my philosophy and my thinking is like, if you're doing it in the service of others, it just makes the journey a lot easier.
Yeah.
Because you see the joy and happiness in somebody else, and that is
Yeah.
contagious.
Yep.
So when I log into my computer and I see 30, 40 different families that have logged in and they're excited to see a class, what kind of day I'm having is out the window. Now I'm excited because now I
I
can
got these little people
I
here.
can continue to share what I've been sharing with them
Yeah.
for the past 2
Yeah.
years, if not even longer.
In my social work department, we have this award called the Starfish Award. And, often in my profession, and it aligns with what you're sharing there, is the intensity of the things we're navigating is so uphill and so heavy. It just feels like you're really never accomplishing anything. You're just spinning wheels in the mud and you're not getting anywhere. And so the concept of the Starfish Award is the story of the starfish. Is a little boy on the beach and he's throwing starfishes into the ocean, and an adult comes by and is like, "What are you doing? Like, there's so many of them. You're not going to save them all. There's so many starfishes." And he just looks at him and he goes down, he picks up another one and he throws it and he's like, "Well, I helped that one." And so that's the kind of the mentality is like when you go down is you just, and you're in the darkest part, you have to remember like, okay, well, I'm going to keep being in service to people because I'm going to do whatever I can, even when it's so dark, I don't know if it's going to have any impact, right? So that's what I love about your story. I love that part of it.
And so we've branched out into different areas.
Yeah.
Whoever that needs our help, we want to be there. And so a lot of the things that we were doing before the pandemic, we've even changed that. We want to make sure that people
Like
are
what?
comfortable. So for example, we had contracts with people where, you have to sign a 1-year contract to do Taekwondo. There's no contracts anymore. You like it, great. You don't like it, that's fine. You're having a hard time, you lost your job, no problem.
We'll figure
you can
it
go,
out.
yeah, we'll figure it out. You can quit and you don't have to pay your membership, or you can, you can continue. And then when you're ready to get back into it, you can get back. And I've talked to parents. There's a lot of people that lost their jobs, and it's hard for them to see. But I say,
Yeah.
fine, that's affecting you as a parent, but don't let it affect your child.
Right.
So if your child is happy and they're enjoying the Taekwondo classes, let
And
them
I've
keep
seen
going.
energy exchanges come out a lot more through this, where the parents have lost their jobs, but they're like, well, I'm an electrician, or I'm this, or I'm that, or whatever their skill, whatever it is they have to barter with, they're like, I can help you out this way. And so I've seen that evolve. I don't know if you've experienced that at all.
You know what? Some of the parents, one in particular, had lost his job. When he came back, he enrolled his other child too. He's like, okay,
Just to,
yeah, please continue charge my card now, and here's my other. And then they go on and refer their other friends because they
Right.
believe in what you do.
yeah.
But you know what? To be honest, the barter thing even happens when they're paying their membership. They're like, you know
Yeah.
what? Let me know what I can do.
Yeah.
So they're like fixing things around the club.
Yeah.
I'm not very handy, but we got a lot
But
of
that's such a
parents that
great
are.
thing. Yeah. Like such a handy thing to have people to do those things.
For
Yeah.
sure. For sure.
So it's interesting. You didn't go to business school, and you're today running to me like a world-class business in terms of the kind of culture you've been able to create by leading with your passion. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I get out of watching how you've done it. And as much as there are, steps in business, like have the business plan and all of these things, you just went. You went for it, and you went for it with like your heart. And not only that, at every moment along your path in the business or in running the business, when you were met with a challenge, you didn't just refer to like the mechanical things to do. You just thought about, okay, well, same thing when you had to redefine, when it was time to let those high performance athletes go. And you just kept going with, how can I service? How can I service? How can I serve? How can I serve? Where does that come from?
I just feel like Taekwondo has had such a
They don't
huge...
teach this in school.
I just feel like it has influenced me so much. And I feel like, it's changed my life so much that I feel like it can change a lot of other people's lives as a result of it as well. The people that helped me in the beginning days of my competition days, they didn't have to do it. I didn't have money. There was times when I couldn't pay my membership, but people were very kind to me. And so, it's just paying it forward. I really believe in that. I think if you help someone, whether they help you back or not, that's fine. Right. But I am confident, 100% confident that they will go and help somebody else.
It's like a ripple effect.
It is. Obviously we just had a storm. And so, the idea of like, you see somebody getting stuck on the side of the road and getting out of your comfortable car and helping somebody else, it's so far-fetched. I don't think a lot of people do it. But you know what? Other people have done that for me.
Yes.
And so during this snowstorm, honestly, as weird as it may be, but it's not really weird, to get out and help push somebody's car for like 5 minutes rather than allowing them to be stuck for hours. It's just an easy thing to do. But because somebody has done it for me, it's easy for me to do it for somebody else. And I think,
because you can see the need then differently, right?
And it's just, they've opened the gateway for giving, and I think that's important. And I think if we give over ourselves more without expectations, I think more people will get, we get more, but you're also teaching others to give of themselves as well without expectations. And that's a beautiful thing to have in a community.
Yeah, big time.
I wish more businesses, we thought about things exactly this way. And I think they're actually starting to change how they teach it. Before, like, what do you mean pay it forward? What do you mean give? It's profit margin. That's it. But now there's so much more to it. And I love the thought leadership that comes from people like yourself. And I think that's where we need to get our thought leadership from, not just from the sense of, how to make more money, but how to lead with the right purpose in mind and how to keep that a constant focus in every aspect of our decision making in running the business. So thank you so much, for coming today, for sharing your entire story. It's been quite the task to ask you to do. You've had to come, spend all this time, share all those details. Some of them very, very uncomfortable in some ways that you've had to go through, that you've had to share that vulnerability from the time. A kid from Afghanistan coming to Canada. You said something really interesting to me earlier on about how, when you first arrive, you remember that part of that shoe story? Remember that shoe story? Where you thought your shoe was something, and then somebody looks at you and that's, and from
that's
that part,
material.
I love that part. But the fact that you were, and that's the crazy thing about that, what drives you too, because you were saying, what did you say, as a kid who was undervalued or something, to be able to then now give to people as a person who not only didn't have anything to give but was in need or sub? How did you say it? Just that got me.
As an immigrant, obviously when I first came to Canada, I wasn't needed for anything. I was almost useless.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But now to be able to provide, to be useful for something, it feels good for people to be like, thank you so much for offering this. This is really needed. Yeah. It feels good to be able to contribute, to be wanted, to be needed for something, to be able to make a difference. Especially to be able to compare those two, right? To be able to compare where like, here I am, guys, like, what can I do? And everybody's like, well, I don't want you because you're kind of useless. But, to be able to offer things to be put on the table and people be like, yes, I want that. I need that. Thank you so much. It has a nice feeling as well. And, the other thing is that I've also thought about as well is like, obviously I am from Afghanistan and the situation there right now is pretty dire. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
People are dying of starvation. They don't really have any opportunities. And obviously, the situation here is not that great either, but it's still luxurious compared to where we come from. So to be able to find the balance in between those two places and find your own happy place and despite all those things, it's I think it's a gift that I cherish. To be able to compare those two, to be like, I could have been
Gives you
there.
Well,
perspective.
you
and,
were there.
I
Actually.
could
You
still
were
be
there.
there if
Yeah.
my parents hadn't decided to come here. I
Right.
would still be there. Life, God knows where I'd be.
So if there's a refugee kid who comes here and looks at the future of how, you remember, like maybe you didn't see this way, but like, from a refugee kid to look at what you're doing, how improbable do you think that is, or how possible do you think that is? What would you say to them?
I think anything is possible.
Anything's possible.
Yeah, I think anything is possible. You just have to find something you love and just go for it. Don't let things get in the way. Don't let anybody stand in your way. Just do it. And if you do it long enough, you'll get whatever you want. But and that length is, no one can define the time. But for as long as you have the will to do it, keep doing it. There was a lot of times in my life when people were like, you know what, why are you doing Taekwondo? Like, I quit after yellow belt. Like, you should quit too. And these are my friends. They're like very close friends of mine. But I was like, you know what? I respect you. I really, I love being around you, but I really love that environment. I really love learning these new techniques. I love being able to perform it and do all these things. So regardless of what anybody was saying, I was just kind of like in my own tunnel vision going towards the direction that I was going. And I think regardless of your situation, regardless of your, socioeconomic background or which country you're from, if you love something, keep going. I think love is a really strong emotion to just throw away.
Thank you. That was amazing. I gotta say, like, you could do anything, right? You could go play basketball. You could do kickboxing. You could do so many things. So just to get people to get out there, and I think we all really need it. Like I tell you, I need it so badly, And if I did have this club, I was going to tell them, like, like if I go and give a Google review, you can be like, I've done the Google review, like great for my family, but I can actually go back and change that to like saved my life.
Yeah.
Like literally saved my life, like, and my
I am not
family's
insane
life.
because of this club.
That's not an understatement. It's exactly how I feel.
I can anticipate that.
So it's great to see it happen, and I'm thinking about, I have thought, I probably might have told you, it's like, I'm sometimes so frustrated with how things are that I'm like, I'm leaving Canada. I'm not the only one who's ever said
No,
this.
I've had many friends that have done it.
And you know what? I think about it, I go, where will I train? Honestly, I've said that out loud. I go, I know where I would work. I can work from anywhere.
Yeah.
I could play golf anywhere.
Where would
Where
I
am I
train?
going to train? I'm like, I'm going to stay.
Yeah.
It's actually anchoring me to stay like in a way that I would otherwise have just walked out. And my family members have told me, come on, you'll find somewhere to train. You'll find people to train with. And I'm like, sure I will.
Yeah.
But this,
that's not the problem. Yeah.
I've looked around. But anyway, so thank you so much for that. And I
Very kind.
look
Thank you.
forward to just having more of those kind of experiences with you.
My pleasure.